oath of allegiance, the three elements, the Constitution, the enemy, foreign, and domestic. To keep it short, we deal with the enemy within, the greatest threat in America today. We're dealing in an age of subversion like never before. We have fifth column citizens now control the party and their life with their enemies to invade our country. We have 7,000 more coming. I keep wondering, where's the point where we can't send them back? Well, free men stand. That is the question. If you don't know what that means, it's a patriarchal term, includes women. PC people don't understand that. Only free men and women will save us. We're hanging by a thread. As Sheriff Mack said when I was down in Arizona, he gave a speech. And you think of our first revolution, what was the difference? Think of, I believe it was Brazil when Lula was in charge, and then the quote, Donald Trump of that country won, and now in Argentina we have a new conservative leader, and he's called the Donald Trump of Argentina. So when you look back at Brazil, why did Brazil go back to the same communist again? Well, one of my favorite organizations is World Affairs Brief. It comes out every Friday. You got to go to that website, worldaffairsbrief.com, and read what he has to say. He made the point this week that because they did not become more moral, that is the problem in the world and in America today. I've documented the moral attack on our country several times, destroy the family, and if you're not happy with your family, you're not going to be happy, period. I mean, Thanksgiving was not a great event for you. It's not a great event for those that hate America and hate everything America's founded on. But as I look at our country, Trump was in that position. Now he's gone. Did we improve our moral attitude? No, we didn't. Instead we got, well, I'm going to go into the events that happen at halftime. I had a program planned tonight, and then all of a sudden I read this magazine I got in the mail to the New American I've told you about as a special on John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 60th year since his assassination. Supposedly yesterday was the 60th anniversary of his burial in Arlington National Cemetery. Yeah, I said it right. And he had the eternal flame established at his website. And he definitely had an eternal flame in the wrong way. And was he effective or wasn't he? Of course, for the Democrat side, he's a big hero, but the conservative side, he really didn't accomplish a lot. He did have great abilities. When Uncle came out, he could read 10,000 words a minute. And boy, many of us wish we had that skill, especially in college. Those are pursuing degrees, or you have to do a lot of reading. But I want to start with a little quote I intended to start with. A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue, it is the parent of all other virtues. So what were you thankful for this Thanksgiving? I guess I could be negative and say, gee, I wish I had a wife and family to enjoy it with, but I don't. But I'm thankful that I have food, clothing, and shelter, and I'm warm. The weather's going down to 13 degrees tonight. You don't really get to let's like cold weather, so I'm glad I am warm. I'm glad I have knowledge. I have an education. I have served my country faithfully and come back alive unharmed. I'm thankful for the family and friends I do have, and the knowledge of the truth in all ways that I have, whether it be political, economic, moral, or religious. I'd hate to live without truth, and socialists live in heck. That is heck, to live without truth, to be searching for the truth and not be able to find it, and be fooled by the lies of men. There's only two forces at work in the world, the forces of the Creator and the great deceiver. You follow the Creator, our nation under God, and live by his principles, things go much better. The peace and gratitude of all you have we can look at the half-empty glass or the half-full glass. The socialists are always looking at the half-empty glass because, as Lenin said, you have to teach people how to hate, and they live on hate. They hate. That doesn't make sense. Maybe the good people, what they hate. They hate morality, religion. They hate America and everything it stands for. And they probably didn't have very good Thanksgiving. The same hate concept is going on, of course, in Israel with Hamas, and now they're releasing the prisoners. That was planned. They got more time to regroup. They always come up with these ceasefires, and as Stalin said, promises are made to be broken, like breadcrumbs meant to be broken, and we will spit in their face and they will call it due. Well, they're spitting in our face morally, politically, and economically. NFL is doing it, country western singers, Hollywood, mocking everything that falls into the category of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant morality, and there are forces that love to hate that. They're supposedly self-righteous people. Well, no, maybe some, yes, some are, but most people live correctly and want other people to do the same thing. And, people hang around people like them. So they're not going to hang around with wicked people. It's like they're stuck up. And wicked people love to hang around good people because they need someone to feed off of there. They don't have anything to offer anybody. Now, going back to this quote, the philosophy of gratitude I got from a friend. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. Not what we say about our blessings, but how we use them is the true measure of our thanksgiving. And now we're going into the holiday season. This time of year, I like to give up politics and not talk about it and get away from it. But I know I need to maintain this time slot. And I've got an information now to probably do 3 shows, the next 3 shows. We haven't taken for granted the very things that most deserve our gratitude. Well, I bet the socialist deep state are not thankful for America. They want to bring us under the UN control, destroy our sovereignty, and make it another globalist country. We're not supposed to think we're better than anyone else. But we are. There's no other country people are fleeing to for liberty. There's no other country that is more in line with the concepts of the Creator. That we're having a great problem with that, and we don't wake up. We're going to fall like the cultures in the Bible that rejected morality and were allowed to be invaded and conquered. What was the one moral issue that did it? Plus the others, the homosexuality. And we're letting them run this country and determine what we do. And our former president supports that. If other candidates do, that's an act of treason. Go read the article about homosexuality on my website, afac.us. You don't understand it. That is the threat that destroys everything else. Tyranny begins when God leaves off, and it's that simple. And that's the end of that quote. Actually, I started with the end of it. A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue, but is the parent of other virtues. Peace is a blessing from the Creator if you live right. You cannot do evil and live in peace. You live in fear of the people that control you, because you're not supposed to leave those evil organizations, or they'll take you out. The mob, the Communist Party, deep state, the CIA even, it's known as, what was that movie, Red? A retired, what was the word? What was the word for E? Dangerous. So they were taking out the FBI agents, extremely dangerous. Anyone knows the truth is extremely dangerous. Anyone who doesn't go along with communism is accused of, I got the term, this fighter in Ireland is being accused of, it'll come back to me. Here's a good quote. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. attitude determines how well you do it. That was by Lou Holtz. What's that attitude? Is it a religious attitude or is it a satanic attitude? What motivation? Those are only two forces at work, good and evil. That's the battle in America between big government and local control, between virtue and vice, between dependence and independence. And it's sad how many people who've been raised on the socialist slave system welfare state created by the Marxists in this country that make them dependent through generations. All they can do is take their money and worship some sports team. They'll never own anything, own land. That's the real freedom. Talked about how money of offices cost my family land. And it feels a little empty being without that freedom. But that's the nature of the game when you decide to stand up. And I've encouraged you to take this course on the Constitution. Clan Skousen. Questions there is this setting a rising sun? That'll be up to you. If you're not a virtuous people, religious people, and you don't want to do anything, you're probably not motivated to do anything, then America. This will be a setting sun. 20 Principles of Liberty. Get that book. Something else I've encouraged you to do is get the New American. Go to jbs.org. They have a special dedicated issue to JFK. And it's just a wealth of information. I've studied for 40 years. I'm amazed what I've learned. I couldn't put it down when I started reading last night. Usually I don't read it through that quickly, but I just did. And I could spend a whole show just on one article. There's so much in it. I like to read it almost word for word. But I am going to give you food for thought from all the articles. Starting out, this is a man. The first article is by interviewed Dr. John Newman. And his background is a 3-decade-long investigation into JFK. And he's written a book. He said he had absolute proof that President Kennedy had ordered the withdrawal from Vietnam. And that was supposedly part of the reason that they took him out. He wasn't going along with the deep state plan. The deep state plan, I don't follow every article totally. I got questions on him. But the basic theory is that he knew he was going to be taken out at some point, and he had so much time to get things done. And that was the one thing that got him took out. And after he was taken out, days later, Johnson reversed that, and we did not pull the troops out of Vietnam. And certainly at certain points in history hinges on a simple point like this. Maybe not so simple. But little things make a big difference. You're not a little thing. You are if you don't do anything, if you don't study, set up a Patriot program, a Patriot library, and start doing what I'm suggesting. I guarantee you by next fall, you'll make a difference. And everyone needs to be on board on this one to save this country from the deep state that's taking us down, destroying our liberty, taking our liberties away. The longer we wait, the more bloodshed is going to take to get them back. Some people think a civil war is coming. Some people are not going to live in communism. Many people are willing to sell their soul for money and pleasure. They don't want to die for anything. But there are those that will not. So it's interesting to see how this all plays out in the future. But I know I'm doing all I can. And as I said, it took great miracles in the first revolution. We know that Washington survived through many miracles, and they escaped being captured or beaten several times. The principle of fasting and prayer worked. They were worthy of it. They were at a high cycle of morality in our country, and that's why they were inspired to create the Constitution. The Lord, God doesn't take a bunch of cat house people and inspire them to create liberty. It doesn't work that way. And so we need to qualify those kind of miracles. Now, the task at hand looks foreboding. But if we do all we can, the Creator will do the rest. We need to qualify for those miracles. We're going to need them to save America. That's my belief. So we had better be morally straight, as I suggest at the end of my show. If we are, the greatest victories come the greatest risks. Greatest accomplishments come from the greatest risks. Greatest victories come to the darkest moments. And everyone knows we're in a dark moment and they're worried what's going to happen, what is the majority going to do? Well, we'll see. As I said, I'm doing the best I can by doing this show and running for office. Trying to get the truth out, you're not going to get anywhere else. There are many good conservative talk show hosts, but they're not going into the topic of subversion and what's behind it and what you should do about it. So, take my glasses off here. I might read better. And that would change history if he did not die. And then when he died, we went into Vietnam. If he had not been assassinated, there would have been no Vietnam War. And the Vietnam War cost East and West all the trade and the routes to get all the equipment and weapons over there for that war. Well, I think many of us veterans of that war know that never intended to win it. You read a book called The Naked Capitalist on my website, read my book list. That's my Patriot library. I've got twice that many books in my shelves over the 40 years of study and fighting this dark force, this hidden government, FBI agents called the invisible government, that people don't want to learn, can't believe it exists. But I've given you several quotes. If you look at the subversion quotes, pay attention to them. Like I say, you can't be effective if you're not virtuous. That's simple. You take a true oath of allegiance to God and his country, as Washington did when he called for Christian soldiers. And those are only kind. We don't have too many, I think, left in the military. We got the opposite of the wokest, communist, Marxist, immoral soldiers. They're controlled by the UN instead of by us. They're serving that cause and they don't even know it. So, I guess I had big fear at the time that the communists were going to take over, and we were supposed to go to Vietnam and stop the communists there. And that argument's being used in Ukraine too. You know, the deep state traps us into a war. Somebody's making big profits, aren't they? The deep state draft dodger crowd. The draft dodgers, I call it a new British class, is all for globalism, and they're controlling everything: education, media. And the Fed is probably the biggest criminal organization in America, and anyone goes against it gets taken out. Now, Kennedy was talking about getting rid of it, printing our own money, like Lincoln did. There are many coincidences between Lincoln and Kennedy. I read an article on that. But Kennedy, Lincoln was taken out because he was going to do something about that. And I'm not sure Andrew Jackson was this. Yeah, he had an assassination attempt at him too, because he shut him down. And Ronald Reagan, of course, didn't take very long to shoot him because he said beforehand he was going to do something about it. So if you want to look at the biggest mob organization, I talked about the organized crime. Well, that is the biggest one of all, run by people with white collars. Study it, get the book, Creature from Jekyll Island, on my website. You can get it from JBS. Look at their book list. If the title strikes, you get it. Begin your study. They got a simple course on the Constitution, and much simpler than the one I'm talking about. But the one I'm talking about goes into this Constitution section by section and backs it up by quotes from the founders themselves and no one living today. They would have never gone for Article 5, even though they basically kind of did that. We're not moral enough to do it. That's the reason. One of the big reasons. The wrong people would take it over, like they did in Brazil, and now they got a Marxist constitution. I think it was Brazil. And when you get a low cycle, you win. You end up in civil war, and we did go downhill after that, and had our civil war, and we haven't really gone up to that level again. Or we want to have gotten in the wars we've been. Only immoral people start wars, and as one Marine general said, war is a racket. Smedley Butler. That's a little book you might find interesting to read. So what else have I underlined here? One of the Bay of Pigs fiasco is another event that conservatives think he betrayed them. They were trained to go in and take back Cuba, and they were supposed to get air cover in. JFK called it off, supposedly. And, of course, they got slaughtered and beaten. And eventually we made a law when the Cuban crisis came along, or this crisis came along, that we would never interfere with Cuba. That was a deep state plan. John Kennedy belonged to that deep state organization called the Council on Foreign Relations. That is the organization behind the scenes that is really running our country in the top of both parties. And, over the years, I've got a collection of books about that. Here's a great book here. None dare call it conspiracy. And I've got a book here called, read by a minister for years too, and I don't call it treason. Nobody wants to call it treason. I'm calling it treason. Morally, politically, economically, what's going on. We're living in a great age of treason. They have warned about, over the years, generationally. I've got generationally written books. And, of course, guess who's controlling the American Library Boards now? A gay Marxist, and they clear the libraries of books like this. They don't like the conservative view in the library. But if you look at the symbols on this book, what do you think of? They're all Communist Party symbols. There's only one of them. I forgot one of them is. Let's see, the top three. The star, of course, is China, Communist China. And then you have the other side, you have the hammer and sickle of Russia. Below that, you've got the UN. They control the UN. It was established by communist agent Eldred Hiss, and he appointed many communists to a position at the conference in San Francisco. There's a picture of Truman shaking hands with him. Why didn't he warn us? Truman was deep state. Every president's been pretty much deep state except Reagan and Trump. Then you have the dollar sign there. That's probably the represents the Fed, the corrupt money backed by nothing. Fiat money was outlawed by the Constitution. They all saying I of the Illuminati. That's kind of a socialist group established supposedly in 1976, same year of our revolution. There was opposition in all things, but the plan of socialism, Satan's plan of government, has always been there. Plato was basically based on Karl Marx, same concepts of government. Then you have the Black Fist at the bottom here. That there, of course, is the communist-controlled black movement in America, 60s, the Black Panthers and others. And, of course, then you have the hand gesture for the peace sign. That's another communist agitprop thing. Now looks like an E there. I forget if that's environmentalism or what. But one I haven't told you about at the top is the chicken tracks. Very few people know where that comes from. It's a Communist Party symbol. Was it Herb Philbrick or Dan Smoot? Two FBI agents I heard speak in Portland years ago. Explain that. I think it was Herb Philbrick, who took on the top 9 leaders of the Communist Party as an undercover agent. If you take the cross and turn it upside down, it's a satanic symbol. The communists break it down, bend it down, and draw a circle around for world government. It is another Communist Party slogan. How many you saw it? Probably Hamas. The communists support Hamas. Every religious demonstration in America, you'll see that symbol out there. There's people wearing it, don't even know it. I once carried it on a keychain, and I realized that I threw it away. Some old keychain I picked up. But the signs are there, but people don't see them because they're not thinking right. So, while going on with this article, we weren't supposed to have a confrontation with Russia because supposedly they had intercontinental ballistic missiles. They make a point here that they did not. They were bluffing. Other side sure it's supposedly the generals, chief of staff, they wanted a nuclear war while we could beat them before they did. Well, they had the bomb. Of course, treason gave them everything they have, whether during World War II or the atomic bomb secrets. We've always had this traitorous pro-cell apparatus operating through the State Department. We have not controlled this country for decades. This new elite ruling class has been there since it was founded in 1919 and before then. After the Civil War, we basically went into control of our government by big business, as reported on the History Channel. But anyway, we had that spy satellite could fly at 80,000 feet. It was called U2, and this story brings up the fact that the assassin, the supposed one assassin of Kennedy, was a communist agent, and he had worked on these while serving in the military in Japan, and had given him the secrets for that. But, whenever you hear something new, I got to research that some more before I'm going to bet my life on it. But it does make sense. One thing that came out, let's see. We had a new toy, the U-2. It's a spy plane that flies 80,000 feet. Now, Khrushchev had a mole in the U.S., in the United States, in the CIA, at a high level mole, so high that he had the technical details of the U-2. Well, the forerunner of the CIA, Office of Strategic Services, was so communist infiltrated. Kissinger was a part of that. Some people in the conservatives document that he was a communist agent all along. Of course, he sold out everything that we did in Vietnam, gave Chinese status over Taiwan, kicked him out of the UN. He still visits every president. There are powers behind the scenes we don't know about, but he's there to let them know how the world runs. Probably says, you know what, you don't do what we want. The Fed can trash this country anytime they want. They can throw us into depression. We need to audit it, and we need to get rid of it. There's a way to do it. Reading on, but along the way, it's important to know that we had another guy whose name was Popov. He defected in 1952. He was a GRU officer of the Soviet military intelligence. GRU operates outside the country. The KGB operates inside the country. That's what our FBI basically is now, in that gulag out in Washington. We got our police state going, thanks to, guess who? The KGB was going to arrest him. There were just so many reasons why he wasn't going to survive, but he decided to go home, and he did. And he got executed. But the last thing he told his case officer, Keith Walter, was, by the way, there is a KGB mole, high echelon in the CIA, that has details of the U-2 in April of 1958 before he went back to Moscow. The fact that he told Keith Walter that is where Harvey Oswald comes in, because what he had done is just now inform the CIA about this high echelon mole with the U-2 specifications. Well, he wasn't the mole that he was talking about. There's a different mole there. And I hope, GCD, if you're not hearing me, let me know. This is too important to miss. Popov told Keith Walter told his boss in his Soviet Russian division, James Angleton, he was a deep stater, who was the head of counterintelligence, that the head of the CIA Office of Security had, was named Bruce Soley, was that agent. Everything he did, he reported to this agent. Don't know he ever did anything about it. Angleton always tells everything he knows to Soley. Because Soley was a KGB mole, everything goes to Moscow. Well, that's been going on for a long time, even during World War II, all the way up to the fall of the Soviet Union, the false fall. The entire gamut of Russian spy services was an extension of the KGB. That's interesting. I'm the one who discovered who he was, says this person being interviewed. The person that what Soley did before Oswald showed up was to get all the records integration division and the Office of Mail Logistics inside the CIA and say every governmental document about Oswald's trip to the Soviet Union and defection goes to my desk alone. He called him a useful idiot. He liked to play spy and would play on one side or the other side. He didn't care. It was a big deal for him. He didn't realize over the years that he was digging his own grave. He was used as a tool. There are theories of who did it. CIA did it. Johnson did it, was behind him, and the mob did it. It was the Cubans that did it because supposedly Kennedy administration was going to use the mob to take out Castro. Well, our State Department established him in the first place, called him an agrarian reformer, and he's that famous author that lied about the Ukraine, did a wonderful puff piece on how wonderful he was and how he's going to be better than Batista. The old State Department game go from worst to worser and worst when they replace somebody. The Dulles brothers were part of the deep state. And they were very powerful, part of the CFR, in fact, the original founders of that organization. Of course, John was the head of the State Department. During World War II, they were working with Wall Street firms, get this, to provide Hitler with 80% or 60% of all their iron while American soldiers were killed in the battlefield. That boggled my mind because I know that went on during Vietnam. They're always supplying. There are companies supplying the other side. We have companies supplying the gas to the Nazis. What was that company? I can't think of the name, but they've been American companies supply both sides. That's evil, but doesn't make sense to it. The soldier always thinks he's risking his life and going through hell, thinks he's fighting something, he's being betrayed before he ever gets there. Take a break and think. Well, I think I don't have any commercials. I don't have any advertisers yet. I don't have any donations yet either. I don't have I'm not making it easy. I don't have a button set up for that. But if you're too lazy to send a check to me, you're too lazy to defend our country, then you might as well move on. What drove the Joint Chiefs crazy, mad, because that was now out in the newspapers. Let's see, what was that in the newspaper? Oh, they had planned for withdrawal of 1,000 troops in 1960. Supposed to happen in 1963. They wanted to put it out to 65, but I think it was. That really drove the Giants crazy. Kennedy also gave a commencement speech to American University. Nobody saw the text and didn't know what he was going to say. And he got up there and made a special appeal to Khrushchev. They accused him of being soft in communism. They accused Truman. He had accused Truman of being soft in communism. He even offered to let the Soviet Union participate in the American space race. Why? All this working together is pure baloney. You don't think our space program is infiltrated? There isn't anything in this country that isn't infiltrated. If not by right communists, those are betraying us to them and the goal of world government. The goal was to use the communists to accomplish their goals. We, the normal patriotic middle-class citizen, are caught in the middle. We're looking here, and it's really up there. That's where the control is. Well, they say, get this magazine for a month. It's well worth the money. I've taken it for many years. I found it very dependable. Like I say, you need to search things out yourself. I don't take anything new. I check it out some more. I'm always learning. There's more to the story. That article was called. He basically, this man was turning Kennedy into a hero because Kennedy knew he was going to be taken out at supposedly. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that was his thesis on of his book. Let's see, the title of that was. You could go probably to JBS and look the article up and read it up yourself, and I get articles in his magazine yourself. But I will get a copy if you, especially if you like Kennedy, and spread it around to your friends. Investigating the Kennedy assassination. Next article is Deep State and the Kennedy assassination. Let's see what it has to say here. Good quote from Professor Carol Quigley in a book called Tragedy at Home. I got that book. It's about 1,000 pages long. I've not read it yet. Dr. Clarence Skousen shortened it to The Naked Capitalist, which I recommend people read. You'll understand the deep state very simply on a national level and international level. And that book really explained to me why we didn't win in Vietnam. And every veteran was mad that we weren't allowed to win that war when they threw it. And of course, they did it again in Afghanistan. Now, there's more of that story I may get to or I may not get to. And I guess I may not get as far as I think. Let's look. This is a good quote. He was in the CFR and he operated alongside of and collaborated with international communism. This is a critical facet of mid-century American politics that bears directly and heavily upon the murder in Dallas in 1963. No less than former Congressman Martin Dies of Texas. He was the first chairman of the Un-American Activities Committees in the House. FDR did not like him. As I said before, he could have brought Trotsky in, who could reveal all the agents in North Americas. But FDR refused to protect them, so he wouldn't do it. Just think of that moment in history, what we could have done. Most people didn't believe this subversive network existed until Eldridge Hess was exposed probably 10 years later. And shortly after that, of course, he was assassinated in Mexico a few months later. Golden opportunity. Every time we are in a position, wherever an anti-communist movement rises up in America, the deep state runs somebody around to the front of fake conservative like William Buckley and attacks the real conservatives and steers it off track. 1960, then we hit a peak in the Hollywood Bowl, and Clarence Skousen was a part of that tremendous anti-communist rally of subversion in America. And it died after that. They did a job because people didn't listen. So he was Texas. He served for 7 years as chairman of the House Committee on American Activities. Attributed the assassination of the president to communist infiltration in the United States that had long been ignored, covered up, or even encouraged by its allies and fellow travelers within the deep state in America. Many presidential administrations up to and including Kennedy's own failed to confront the threat of internal communist subversion. And that is the main theme of this show. That is what's taking America down. I'm going to be talking about subversion every time. I'm going to give you more information. And, maybe I'm too sexy. I talk about sex all the time. The problem is I don't do it. To be a Marxist, you got to do it. If the tyrants, in order to control the country, need a morally decayed citizenry. And boy, we got a lot of people leading the way. We got this foolish little affair going with the football player and country singer. That's what's really important. Don't listen to anything I say. Just follow that soap opera. Don't study the Constitution. Don't read books on communism. I asked the candidates one time, what books have you read on communism? And he said, zero. I didn't get an answer. They didn't like the question. And they lost. They lost for their race here in Wisconsin. Dodge wrote, the point is that constant liberal failure, even so much as acknowledge the existence of internal communist threat, resulted in the assassination of Kennedy. I guess I said that already. Taylor Caldwell was a famous author back then. I've got a book by her, I thought, somewhere. But she had warned that Kennedy was going to be assassinated from the messages she was getting from the liberal side. And the enemies of freedom in God are everywhere in every country of the West, she wrote. It is possible that Mr. Kennedy is in personal jeopardy from them, a matter which is not being mentioned in newspapers. Indeed, it is very probable. Presidents have been murdered before in our history in less dreadful times. This is the first person who supposed he did it, never bragged about it. She went on to explain the reasons. I received quite a number of pro-communist liberal periodicals, and they were inflammatory against Kennedy because they hadn't gone left far enough. They were wrathful. It seems they expect him to overthrow the Constitution and set up a sort of crypto-communist dictatorship. Well, Obama sure worked on that well, didn't he? Says your Kennedy didn't take long to put the communist deep state conspiracy on notice. He was kind of a strange mix. You know, all during this stuff, what was he? The nation's biggest womanizer. He slept with communists. The Secret Service brought in a communist agent. Exner, the mob of this Giancana or whatever his name was, going to use the mob to help take out Fidel. He also rigged the election in Chicago so Kennedy would win. Ford has been gone as Democrat Party for a long time. Johnson got elected through fraud in Texas. In fact, a man was murdered in jail to shut him up. One article I read, but you don't get this information from any other sources and sources like this. We live in a 1984 information world where the media is not going to tell us the truth of what's really going on. You got to search it out. You get it maybe through your friends on emails and podcasts that have risen up to take on the deep state control of information. Essentially, he condemned on certain terms both secret societies and the communist conspiracy. Well, let's see, as far as the secret society, he belonged to it. He was a hypocrite of the highest order, in my opinion. He couldn't remain loyal to his wife. His wife probably didn't care. These is married for power, so these are socialist elites. Maybe I'm wrong on that judgment. But, you know, one of my next adulter presidents running that party, go back to Wilson, FDR, Truman, I haven't heard much about him. Once in a while you get a Democrat to straight. Jimmy Carter, I think, was pretty straight. I never heard any stories about him. But, of course, Clinton. I mean, if the truth came out about his affairs, Kennedy would never have been, there's one other article that says he would not have been the candidate for president. And that applied to Clinton also. The information that come out, it applies to Obama and his subversive background. That was covered up by the media. Never should have been president. So our Fifth Column Party's been doing it for a long time. And as the communists say, they can't sell out rights, they do through religion. And unfortunately, they've infiltrated many churches. And I mentioned before, get me in trouble, the Pope is a Marxist. And he is pushing their ideas. I know communism. I know their goals. And that's why I can say that. And I've noticed that it's the biggest church I've seen. It's the most infiltrated church. Wherever the Catholic Church is strong, that is where the biggest success of communist infiltration has taken place. In California, I met the head of security in Oregon when I was active out there, and he was Catholic. And he went to a meeting in LA, and the bishop brought in the Black Panthers and said, "You need to listen to them." And he walked out of the church, never went back. He told me. But he warned me one time there was a warrant out for my arrest. I better go pay that bill. He could have technically arrested me, I guess. Maybe messed up my record or something, but he was on my side. I'd lost everything at that point. But anyway, I'm going to end the talk about here. You can get this magazine. I may come back to these other articles There's so much in here of worth in this New American. Some other ideas I want to convey tonight. One thing I promised my campaign manager here in Wisconsin, he volunteered in the Green Bay area. He actually got me on the ballot for president of Illinois. I told him I don't have any money, I can't pay him, so you want it, you can do that. He did, but it didn't last very long. And he moved up to Green Bay, and he's still involved and believes what I'm doing. And he gave me a question to ask here. The question on our income tax form is always there, well, are you willing to donate to the presidential campaign? And he put some issues out here. Which ones are constitutional? Is welfare constitutional? How about defense, education, foreign aid, health? There's only one there that's constitutional. The rest are do you know that the income tax comes off the second plank of the Communist Manifesto? We're living on all 10 planks. You know what they are? Go to my website under the AFAC section, afac.us, and read the communist information, the 10 planks. Read the Oath of Allegiance there too. The 45 goals of subversion that I've listed. Read the ACLU letter, where I was able to take out Ronald Reagan's choice to be governor of Oregon and the first female vice president. She was a big rhino. Ronald Reagan wasn't perfect. We cannot have these personality cults like Reagan or Trump. He was not experienced. He messed up half the time. He talked out of both sides of his mouth. You people do not know the Constitution. You think he's going to save it. That should be the cult. The Oath of Allegiance, the Constitution. As I say, I don't vote for anyone who's not morally straight for obvious reasons and doesn't know the Constitution. And now he may pick Kerry Lake to be his vice president. Someone's never been in office to be second command. Does that make sense? I think many veterans that are always serving would be a better choice than her. I like her fight. I wish she'd been governor. But she hasn't proven to me she's ready to tackle subversion yet. Until I see that, I've lost my fire for her. So anyway, welfare. Only thing the federal government is supposed to do is protect us. Defense, control commerce, interstate commerce, and the rest of these things. No, not supposed to provide for our needs. Foreign aid, it was really not constitutional, but they always create this gray area to get away with it. The Supreme Court hasn't done its job for over half a century of limiting illegal constitutionalism, actually since the FDR got in office. Welfare, no. Education, no. Not even at the state level. That's up to local community to decide who they want to hire. You know, the best schools we ever had were the church schools. They turned a lot smarter people than we're turning out now. So, go back to this issue of sex. Try to stay away from it. We're getting slapped in the face with it all the time. Remember, I talk about those wonderful black NFL players who were just a bunch of racists, had 17 women in 12 hours. Yeah, we need to know about that. Or the Virginia mom who's running as a Democrat is putting out porn movies with her husband. It's all part of OnlyFans, kind of a porn site. It's a porn site. Pornography is one of the goals of communism. Sex for money. They chose money over principle. Arizona teacher was removed and resigned because she did that. One person is supposedly within 24 hours, the parents find out about it and she got fired. She resigned rather. One person supposedly made $38 million. One teacher quit of Minnesota, was it? And she supposedly made $1 million. Talk about human trafficking. That's what this is. That's what they're doing. Immoral people heathens are not going to save this nation. Let's see, $7 million. Oh, the fighter. There's this fighter made $7 million, more money than she ever made fighting. Paige Van Zandt, wrestler. 230 million are subscribers to this website. Um, it's a $55 billion industry. And I just read something on email that Hamas is raising funds for human trafficking. Pure evil needs to be taken out. Let's see. Students are doing it to pay their loans. What's human trafficking? You got Dolly Parton going to the football game. This is not. She made her fame by enlarging her breasts. And just that poor country gal has one of those arranged marriages. I forget what they call that, but you don't have to be loyal to your partner. We're worshiping into grows when we worship immoral people and expect them to save our country. Money and sex talks. That's the basic mob formula. That's what you want. That's what you get. Don't complain about the results. Let's see. What's another good news item here? We got several good ones. They found this brothel out in the Washington area, D.C. area, and they had the book on everyone. Supposedly the GOP gave $300 million to new FBI headquarters, which is going to be larger than the Pentagon. And supposedly the GP voters are getting blackmailed to do that. Comey was supposed to be the new director when they first came out with this years ago. And there is nobody that's fit to replace J. Edgar Hoover. Deep State always wanted to get rid of him. And I guess Kennedy was going to force him into retirement. But no, I don't think he had any Kennedy's death. Some people might jump on that idea, but no. So anyway, I've talked about sex espionage. And people, the communists have people here compromising people in powerful positions to blackmail them. It's that simple. The Mustang Ranch probably runs cameras on everything up in Nevada for anyone that comes in there. Anyone that goes into a house of prostitution, it's probably going to be filmed. And down the road, when you become somebody, then they're going to blackmail you with it. Here's an interesting quote. History from the history does not entrust the care of freedom to the weak and timid. Eisenhower said that. It's a quote. It was on the Vets in Defense of Liberty. I joined that organization. I think I need to repay my funds. But I added morally weak and timid. It says 7,000 more people coming. That 42,000 has gone through the Darien Gap. What's his name? They're trying to impeach him. He actually went down there and built more buildings for him. It was more money. This is the Communist Party of America. Everything they're doing makes sense if you get that set. Sorry, it's now the Communist Party. Morally, political, economic, right down their line. Unfortunately, we have too many Republicans that are fake Republicans. And the communists want to infiltrate, take over one of our political parties. They've done so with that. As Lincoln said, it could not happen. Well, help from within our country, and that hope is there. And I'm always talking about that. Maybe I'm talking too much. We have the new presidency pair. I'll save that. I'm down to 5 minutes. Camelot. What happened in Camelot was a beautiful idea at the end of the movie. The king says to a young fellow, never forget the dream that there was a Camelot. Well, what destroyed it? Adultery. That's all there was in the Kennedy-Johnson administration. They were both adulterers par excellence. Johnson, I guess, got 3 of his staff members pregnant out of wedlock. It's another story. The media never always covered this stuff. They were, what's the term, discreet. But this stuff is coming out now. And you got to be careful that you don't believe every story you hear. But now that's what the party stands for. And he was a born-again Christian. He hid behind that one. What are I'll let that go. I was going to go on the theme of cults. I've talked about Plato's Republic, communism, the organized crime, but cults, those four things that are destroying America from within, but they're all based on Satanism anyway. But cults have two basic characteristics: is immorality, sacred oaths, and taking innocent lives. And that can be done individually at the local level, state, and federal level. Governments get into wars they shouldn't be in, run by people like that. That's maybe a new thought, something to think about, but I've always considered fraternities and sororities in that category. I've never met a leader who wasn't immoral. I was invited into one once and I turned it down because I only had a year to go and I didn't want to go through all that hazing, and he wasn't a moral individual. So, but they do have their secret oaths. I once worked security and I reported something on them and I wasn't allowed to walk in their buildings anymore. No, we're country being run by these draft dodging elites. What's the worst one we heard of? The Skull and Bones of Yale that both Kerry and Bush belonged to. And we thought we had a choice. Something for you to investigate. Coming up, last thing to mention is the DeSantis-Newsom debate. Now, why would an American want to debate a communist? Who does that help? Now, if DeSantis doesn't know anything about the Constitution and doesn't know anything about subversion, he could really show him up. But I haven't heard anything out of him yet that says he can do that. For the communists, it's a big win. They get to spout their propaganda to their people. So I don't go along with this. Eisenhower invited Khrushchev to this country. He was supposed to go back. He was stopped by public opinion. It would have been a big publicity coup for the communists if Eisenhower would have gone and returned that visit and gone to Russia. Subversion is the issue. Are you ready to join my sit-rep campaign? Fight subversion, infiltration, and treason in our republic. If you expect to be injured and free, expect what has never been or ever will be. Equal rights require equal responsibilities. Defend us morally, politically, physically. A lot of draft dodgers running this country. All so impressive with their college degrees. They know everything. Boy Scout motto: keep yourself morally straight. Don't let your children grow up to be comrades. Swallows and ravens, morally corrupted, will serve the communist cause. And now they're pushing transgenders and all this other baloney. My number one rule on my website: don't cause problems for other people to pay for. Greatest accomplishments come from the greatest risks. We're going to have to risk everything to save this country, is my opinion. Their greatest victories out of the darkest moments. Liberty without virtue. If you expect liberty without virtue, you expect what has never been or ever will be. Do it right. Do it now. Be free men and women. Study. Hopefully you'll come back next week. I'm amazed I can talk for an hour. You can listen to me too for an hour. I wish I had kind of commercials I could take breaks. So until next time, have a good week. Prepare for the holidays. Keep the Creator in mind, the Savior. Without Him, we don't have a country. Without them, we don't have a country. We don't have peace. We don't have prosperity or safety. And on that note, where's my button? Oh, there's my lead button. Gotta do one more time. May God have a good week. Thank you.